Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, May 24th, 2021. New week, new show, new conditions here at home. Much of the production team absent today. In fact, basically all of the production team absent today as The Office opens up again, at least on a limited basis. 2 days a week, the production assistant, the unnamed production assistant, because security measures, etc., etc. We need to use a pseudonym for our family members here, because there's a lot of crazy people out there. Anyway, off and back to the office. So no Coke can opening up in the background. The microwave probably won't be going off in the background because the rest of the production crew still asleep. It is asynchronous Monday for the one member of the crew that might otherwise get up before the show ends. The other probably sleeping soundly through it, but hey, who knows? There could be any number of emergencies that may arise. And a busy day today as we head out also to get the last of the vaccination regimes started for our 15-year-old. Now eligible, of course, and also with most of the standardized tests out of the way so that any reaction to the shot doesn't overlap with any important academic dates. It may yet still overlap on the second shot, but who knows? You got to take a shot at it sometime, I guess, so to speak. All right, plenty to round up, but that's what's news here on the home office front. It's strangely quiet out there. Much to round up, as you know. Greg Dworkin will be with us shortly, and he's got a whole raft of stories as usual. We've got lots going on here, around the country, around the world. Big news over the weekend as the very strange and dangerous and worrisome event taking place in the old, I guess, Eastern European bloc, as a journalist and activist from Belarus had his flight intercepted. He was on a commercial airline flight on Ryanair, the Irish carrier. Where was he going here? I'll have to read the story. The original flight route was Athens to Vilnius, capital of Lithuania. And the path apparently crosses through Belarus. And when that happened, the president of Belarus, the allegedly quite corrupt Alexander Lukashenko, ordered a fighter jet to ground the plane. And, I mean, I guess they didn't have that much choice but to comply on Ryanair, although, I'm sure they wondered at the time, well, what are they going to do? Blow us out of the sky? I mean, it's a commercial airliner. This is, this country would have to face the wrath of the world, but then they probably realized, hey, when it comes right down to it, the wrath of the world doesn't really mean all that much, and it certainly doesn't do anything to unkill us, so I guess we ought to land, because it hasn't been that long since the Russian, or at least Russian-allied fighters were said to have shot down the Dutch commercial airliner over Ukraine. So that probably occurred to them. And they figured, well, we'd better. And so now we're stuck in this situation where we have these ex-Eastern Bloc dictators pulling these stunts, and nobody's exactly sure what to do about it and where to look for some sort of relief. I guess, thankfully, Trump isn't still president. He simply, I guess, would have agreed with it, or maybe he would have been instructed to say something and shake a fist or something, and then he would have called Putin to ask whether it's okay to continue to do this or not. But you know what? There's not that many more options available at the moment for Biden either. I mean, I'm not certain what you do about this, but I guess we'll find out in the coming days as they decide how to handle this diplomatically. Really tough situation. All right, let's answer the phone here on Greg and get started with his roundup. That I think probably the biggest international news, but definitely had to be mentioned. I don't know what to tell you what to do on that one. There's we've been enabling weirdo dictators for a long time because, at least 4 years, because the world looked to us normally to figure out what to do about it, but at the time we were headed by a weirdo dictator, so it was a little difficult to know how to present solutions to the rest of the world. All right, the world's problems aside, Greg Dworkin is here. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Hi. So I'm glad not to be part of the world's problem.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just part of Connecticut's problem.
Yes, that's true. And if at any point, let's say Andrew Cuomo decides that he's got to extradite you from Connecticut, I don't know how often you're flying over New York State.
I don't know. It sounds like something the younger Giuliani would do. By the way, ABC News has sort of a two-parter on that. The intercepted plane with a fighter jet was actually after the fact. According to ABC, what happened is that the KGB had agents on board, and while on board, they claimed there was a bomb on the plane.
Oh, yes, right.
So the fighter had no choice but to land. The pilot had no choice but to land, and then the fighter just came along to make sure that they did, and escort them to a place where they could.
Yes, I did. I did see that over the weekend. I forgot all about it as I was looking through the CNN article about it. But yes, that's true. Good plan if you are an evil genius, I guess.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the idea that somehow it was all spontaneous, no.
Oh, no, clearly not.
Because you had those people on the plane, and they had a plan, and they followed through on the plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's all important. So, that kind of leads me to one of the main articles I want to talk about here, which is on Substack by Clint Watts, an ex-FBI guy, which I just thought was fascinating. And the title of the article is, Why Does Social Media Lead Us to Believe Things That Are Not True?
It doesn't. Does it?
Well, it can. In this particular case, it is true. But why am I telling you that there were people on the plane who claimed that there was a bomb on board, and it was that bomb threat that grounded the plane? I wasn't there. I wasn't on the plane. How do I know?
Oh, yes,
well,
true.
I'm citing it because it was ABC News.
Right.
All right. And that one of the things that happens with social media, which Clint points out, every person's experience on social media is uniquely different and universally distorted because we all have different people we follow and who are following us.
True.
Okay. We often don't realize that there are three biases that sway our thinking, he says. First is confirmation bias. Wow. We tend to seek out, consume, and internalize information from the internet and social media that agrees with our views. So we all know that. We read Daily Kos. I write for Daily Kos sometimes. And, I see stuff on there that tends to be from a similar point of view. So to try to avoid that, I also read The Bulwark and other conservative media just so that I don't get a completely distorted view of what's going on in the world. But a second understated and more powerful force in social media is implicit bias. That is to say, if I know I'm reading it on Daily Kos, maybe I should check it on The Bulwark, because if it's true in both places, if it's there in both places, if it's written up in both places, maybe it is true. But the implicit bias says we tend to trust information that comes from social media users that look like, talk like, and think like we do. And so social media herds us into online communities of like-minded and similar-looking users, specially selected from our families, friends, coworkers, and those we admire.
Okay.
And so this is part of the deal here. If you tend to be a consumer of what is sometimes called mainstream sources,
okay,
and you see it on ABC News, you tend to believe it because they're a trusted source, ABC.
You tend.
Did I check it 9 different times before I told you that? No. I just remember seeing it somewhere else, but I definitely saw it on ABC News, and I can even send you the link. Mm-hmm. And so I tend to believe it because ABC News believes it.
Yes.
So this dynamic often leads to well-meaning people consuming and sharing incorrect and at times nonsensical information from friends and family because they implicitly trust the person that shared it with them. So if I have somebody that I follow regularly on Twitter, and they tweeted the ABC News, there's a double confirmation it must be true. Because not only did ABC say it, but you retweeted it. And I trust you, so, must be true, right?
I thought you were saying Yuri tweeted it. Who's Yuri? Okay, well, we
Yuri.
know Yuri, but okay.
You know Yuri.
Yeah, we do, but okay. Could be any Yuri. I'm not saying it was his
fault. Tweets all the interesting news. So, and then finally, availability bias ensures we often see the most extreme or frightening news on any given topic. Calamitous, fear-based messaging travels further and faster than bland messages. That's why whenever you're seeing something about, well, Joe Biden hasn't passed everything in his agenda, does that mean that things are coming to a halt, grinding to a stop, the end of his agenda?
Probably.
But why is that? Because he didn't pass anything this morning. It's already at 9:11.
Oh.
And it's 9 o'clock, 11 minutes after the hour.
All right.
And he hasn't passed For the People Act. And he hasn't passed the infrastructure stuff. And he hasn't passed, gun violence issues. And so, obviously, he's a failure. And now Democrats are searching for what to do if Biden... Well, come on. That's ridiculous. That's the availability bias crap. We got nothing to write about. He's really boring. I can't even prove that he has a tan suit in the closet, although I'm sure he'll wear it, thereby causing a scandal.
Sit on a desk.
But, Biden's so boring, we can't really do this, so we got to write about something. Well, modern day, if it bleeds, it leads.
Right. Okay.
That's why you read about, there is a guy, the Yankees. The Yankees have,
what?
They're in a virtual tie for first place. They're a half a game out, whereas the Rays and the Sox are tied for first early in the season. But this is the time of year where your team hasn't lost yet. Are we talking about? No, we're talking about the fact that 8 Yankees tested positive for COVID even after being vaccinated. Well, yeah,
but
that's because they're doing an incredibly sensitive PCR test that picks up minute amounts of virus, but the people they tested really aren't sick, which means vaccines work. So are you leading with vaccine works? No, you're leading with tests are positive. No.
So they do have it. It's just the vaccine is doing what we were told it would do. It keeps
stops you from getting sick.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, yes.
In fact, there's an argument to be made, and some of the experts in the field on testing do this, say this is where you stop doing PCR tests. If the Yankees are all vaccinated, just do the rapid tests. The rapid tests aren't as sensitive, so they're only going to pick it up if you're actually sick.
Okay. I guess that would
right?
work.
Sometimes you do the rapid test, and that's not enough because you really need to know whether this sick person has it, so you do a PCR. But if you're screening and you're well, rapid tests are actually better because they're only going to pick up people who are sick.
I guess so. Although I don't mind them spending the money on the Yankees organization. Go ahead and do that and just tell us that the vaccines are working. People got it, but they're okay.
Well, if that's your conclusion, that's what you should do. So back to Clinton Watts. Right. Why does social media lead us to believe things that aren't true? Confirmation bias, tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs. If you think the vaccine works, hearing about the Yankees makes you think the vaccine works. If you think that, what's the point? You get sick anyway. Well, you're going to hear that and think, this story proves that I was right.
But they're not sick. But okay, I get the point. Yeah.
Or implicit, unconscious attitudes and stereotypes attributed to people without our conscious knowledge. That is to say, if a bunch of white dude bloggers say the same thing, maybe it's true because, I'm a white dude blogger. Right. Which is, by the way, why I make a big effort to make sure I'm reading Black Twitter because, you learn a whole lot of stuff that you didn't otherwise think would occur to you.
Yes.
This is why you pay attention to what black women are voting for in a Democratic primary because it'll tell you a lot about who's likely to win.
Yeah.
And you won't get that from just following your friends who went to caucus in Iowa.
That's true. And they lost a lot of time there, too.
Right. And availability. Assumption that most readily available information is accurate because, everybody's saying it, therefore it must be true. Crime is up. Did you know that?
My personal crimes?
Therefore, because crime is up in cities all over the country, the pandemic had nothing to do with this, then therefore giving up on progressive policing reform must be what people do next because crime is up. But as people have pointed out on Twitter, if you actually study this, crime is up in conservative cities, it's up in liberal cities, it's up everywhere, and so it really has nothing to do with whether or not you invoked progressive reforms.
Yeah,
it's just up.
Nobody did yet. Right. Well, okay. It's important to know that it's up across the board. I don't know who thinks that they implemented huge progressive reforms in policing.
Well, the New York
and
Times, of course.
They failed in 10 minutes, but okay, I guess
that's
they might.
A lead story on the Times
really?
Today and yesterday. So
that's
where, what are you talking about comes from.
Okay. Well, that's too bad because.
All right. So Clint points out 4 things we tend to believe: that which we see first,
that's why I don't look
that which we see most.
Yes.
That which comes from a source we trust, whether the information is correct or not.
Except
ABC News said it must be true. And that which doesn't have any rebuttal. So if nobody says otherwise, why wouldn't you believe it?
Yes, okay.
Well, that was the whole purpose of blogs. That's why we started blogs back in the Iraq War days.
Yeah.
We didn't believe it. We didn't trust it. And since nobody in the mainstream media was rebutting, we have to.
Right. Okay.
That's why we started doing that, and still doing it all these years later. When all of a sudden blogging comes back in fashion, except now it's Substack and individual newsletters.
Right, except if you're
by
Donald
bloggers,
Trump.
by the people who started blogging in the first place.
Yeah, that is.
Who do you find there? Matt Iglesias.
That's true.
Well, why do you know that name? Well, back in the day.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, except for Donald Trump, who's doing it old school. But nobody's reading it.
Right. So anyway, I just thought that was a pretty interesting, simple, but not too simplistic view of why people tend to believe what they believe. And so, the basic thing there is if you see something and it's like wild, before you retweet it, why don't you just look it up first?
Yeah, there is that. But yeah, that theory actually explains it pretty well. I've retweeted things, and particularly where I've said, that seems a little odd. But it is from ABC News. I've absolutely done things like that, and not until afterward did I think, well, it's not like ABC can't get something wrong or whoever it was, but I have more suspicion when it's a guy, even if it's a checkmark guy, but now we'll look at that. But usually, that there's usually a professional process behind allowing ABC News to go ahead and even something as frivolous as a tweet to go out, they do check those things. And sometimes the check is, well, okay, I see what you mean, and there's a different interpretation of it. But rarely is it, gosh, that's just flat out fake. But I guess it does happen. All right.
Bill Barr says that Trump was exonerated.
Yeah, that guy I don't believe. Although if
Bill
ABC
Barr said it.
Yes.
That doesn't mean he was exonerated. But every news outlet is saying Bill Barr says Trump is exonerated. So Trump is exonerated. No, it said Bill Barr says.
Yeah.
That, they could have written it as, according to Bill Barr, which we haven't seen the report yet, but he says the report says Trump is exonerated. That's very different than Trump is exonerated.
Yes. If you count that,
they're all respectable news outlets, and they all say the same thing, except like one or two got it right and said Bill Barr claims.
Right. Well, sometimes I retweet it and say that on top of what they said. And that shouldn't count against you if you raise your own objection to it. Well, sure, ABC News says that he's exonerated, but he isn't, and this is just stenography. That I think you should get credit for.
Yep. Okay. But that's why you tend to follow trusted people. So when they say it, you retweet that and say, well, my trusted person says it.
Yes.
My trusted person says he wasn't, but I haven't seen the report either.
Yeah, that's true. That happens. All right.
A year after George Floyd, says the New York Times, pressure to add police amid rising crime. L.A., like other cities across the nation, is facing a rise in gun violence, and the police budget is growing. And what does that mean?
I don't know.
Obviously, it means that progressive policies failed, because that's the New York Times, so they got to figure out how to say this.
I guess so. They failed before they were tried. There you go. Good.
The surge is prompting cities whose leaders embraced the values of the movement last year to reassess how far they're willing to go to reimagine public safety, divert money away from the police and toward social services. But it's also true that crime is rising in cities that didn't even consider that.
Right.
Is that in the article? No, that's not in the article. You have to read elsewhere to find out that that's true.
That's too bad. Well, do read elsewhere.
Right. So that's why we read as much as we can. Yes. So, other things in the news? Well, the press in this case in the form of the Washington Post, is trying to reassess what it means to be a Republican. And they struggle with it because they have a blind spot. And the blind spot is they cannot or will not acknowledge that the Republican plan is keep power, gain power, don't give up on power.
But it's so simple.
But if that's your blind spot, you'll see this as a policy struggle.
Okay.
Because what else could it be? This is the Washington Post. Republicans struggle to define a new governing coalition as Trump closes grip on party. This move poses a threat to the party's efforts to reclaim moderate, largely college-educated voters who were turned off by Trump, while muddying the party's efforts to shift the national focus to the less popular parts of Democratic policies, and a continued repudiation of the orthodoxy that last restored Republicans to power and governed the party for 2 generations. For example, GOP voters are moving away from the traditional conservative political conversation. Some even showed early support for parts of President Biden's policy agenda. And plans for a massive infrastructure spending bill paid for with tax increases, which the public supports. But that's crazy. And the reason it's crazy is because Trump and the Republicans now are doing what Trump and the Republicans always did. Lower taxes on the rich, try to stop people from voting. This isn't new, and it isn't just starting with Trump.
No.
And they're not straying from that at all, because their agenda is to get reelected.
Yes.
And the rest is just a tool, a mechanism to get there. They don't really care about policy.
Yes.
You know that because they don't care about deficits when they're in power, for example.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole idea, they're writing this as if, we're flummoxed because we're trying to figure out exactly what's going on with. Well, where do the Republicans really stand on these policies? Don't you get it? They're for it when they're in power. They're against it when they're not in power. And the only thing they really care about is blocking people from voting so that they can stay in power. And if you don't get that, you're going to look at these policy decisions that they make and say, well, this is really crazy. I can't figure it out. Like, what is Liz Cheney doing? She voted to impeach Trump, but she won't support voting rights.
Yes.
Why is that? I'm flummoxed. Well, duh. She wants Republicans to stay in power just without Trump. That's all. It's all about power. If you understand that, then it's totally clear what she's doing.
Well,
otherwise, you are going to be flummoxed because you're trying to make connections that don't exist.
They do want to stay in power. Specifically her staying in power.
Yes. She's not doing it because she wants Democrats to be in power.
Right. She's not switching parties or anything like that, even if we would have her. And
right. None of that stuff.
Axios made it all clear, apparently, in their HBO... whatchamacallit, whatever it is, that deal they put together. Apparently they're on television. Yes, that's what they call things on TV. Right. Thank you. I forgot during the pandemic. Anyway, but that was as clear as day. And although it ended up turning into something where liberals could run around admonishing other liberals for supposedly making Cheney into a hero. And everybody spent the morning saying, I didn't do that. Did you do that? Who did that? I didn't do it.
Nobody really did that. We admire the fact that she told the truth, and that's great on this one topic. And that doesn't mean we'll vote for her.
No, we'll never have that chance, thankfully. And if she tries to give it to us, we'll decline politely.
Right.
Okay.
So, my point in highlighting that the Washington Post piece is when you limit yourself by not seeing power as an end in and of itself, you're right, wrong-headed stuff about policy because you think that this is a policy discussion. It's not.
Well, our founding fathers said that it wasn't an end in itself, and so...
Right. That's why, if you don't understand that it's a power grab, you're going to look at the GOP Arizona election fraud and get it wrong.
Yes. Well, that seems to be a hobby that many people share.
Yep. Okay. Jennifer Morrow writing in the Washington Post, I watched the GOP's Arizona election audit. It was worse than you think. They're not only hunting for bamboo fibers, which you knew. That, by the way, proves it's from Korea.
Oh.
That's why they're doing that, because the fake ballots were flown in from South Korea. That's one of the theories. But apparently, and I have to go over this article again and see where I missed it, but you probably didn't know this, they were also looking for cheese dust. Did you know that?
I want to say that I did so badly, but what the hell are you talking about?
At one point, I overheard some volunteers excitedly discussing a stain on the ballot, she says. It looks like a Cheeto finger.
Cheeto, I
believe.
Like
somebody just touched it with cheese dust. That had to be suspicious, their teammate agreed. Why would somebody come to the polls with cheese powder on their hands?
Good question.
Right.
No,
but I personally, the person writing this, have seen ballots stained with almost anything you can imagine. Coffee, grease, and cheese powder, yes. And again, when you have experience working with hundreds of thousands of ballots, you see some messes. There's evidence of humanity's idiosyncrasies, not foul play. But the equipment, she says, worried me more than the wild theorizing. At the forensics table, remember, forensic audits is the new buzzword.
Yes.
Auditors took a photo of each ballot using a camera suspended by a frame, passed the ballot to somebody operating a light box with 4 microscope cameras, a huge deviation from the norm. Usually all equipment that election officials use to handle a ballot has been federally tested and certified. Often states will conduct further tests before the jurisdictions accept the machines. It jarred me to see volunteers using this untested, uncertified equipment on ballots, claiming the images will be used at some point in the future for an electronic retally. And whenever the Secretary of State released letters listing our concerns, the auditors would try to address them at least. On my first day in the arena, for example, I noticed runners collecting tally sheets from the counting tables and bringing them to a single person. And by the last day of observation, the auditors were attempting to set up a quality control station. So at least they were trying to figure it out on the fly as they went along, which is what happens when a bunch of amateurs do this.
Not even.
And Amanda Carpenter, who's over at Bulwark, said, why aren't Democrats making this an issue, or am I missing something? And I was having a convo with her. Yeah. And I think what's happening is the Secretary of State level stuff is happening. In other words, Michigan, Arizona, the Secretaries of States who are Democrats are saying this is ridiculous. But the national people aren't doing it because it's too stupid and they don't want to highlight it and make it a bigger issue.
I guess. I don't know. Why aren't we doing something? Let's storm the Arizona State Senate.
He's running, and Trump is attacking some of the people running against him for not being Trumpy enough.
Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning. I have good news to report. Many more listeners like you are making critical contributions that keep our show on the air. Makes good sense, of course, and patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple. Now you can make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for helping keep you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all of your support. We literally could not do this without you. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin's still with us, still commiserating over the I don't know what to call it, the circus in Arizona. I read quite a bit about it over the weekend. There are a couple other pieces to share with you guys about it later on. Just for
right. There are more pieces. Here's one from this morning.
The
Cybersecurity 202, Maricopa County, showing how not to audit an election.
That's one of them. Yes. Okay.
And the coup de grace came when Arizona Secretary Katie Hobbs, a Democrat, one of the Democrats talking about this, warned the county it should replace nearly 400 ballot tabulators at a cost of millions of dollars because it couldn't verify that cyber ninjas hadn't tampered with them.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with doing audits, on the fly, on the cheap with people who don't know what they're doing.
Meanwhile, Maricopa County leaders, who are Republicans, are contemplating suing the state Senate, run by Republicans, and the auditors said they will not use any equipment that isn't verified to be secure. The County Board of Supervisors, majority Republican. So the slapdash approach to the audit stands in stark contrast to how nonpartisan election audits are typically conducted. The problem is, of course, another Washington Post story from a couple of days ago. Inspired by Arizona recount, Trump loyalists pushed to revisit election results in communities around the country.
Yes.
Now, somebody pointed out that there is, in fact, a poll out from Ipsos pointing out that a bare majority of Republicans still think Trump is president, that he won the election.
They seem wrong.
Well, but if that's the case, then he's not eligible to run in 2024, is he? Because,
Aha. Well, these are also the people
having
who,
two thoughts in your head at the same time is too much for these people, so I can't expect that of them.
They're the same ones who thought, they addressed this early on, saying that he could run again in 2024 because really his 2016 victory had been stolen from him by obstructionism from Democrats, and that the first term was invalid. You remember that one? They actually, they're on the ball on that one. That we get it. They said they should have a do-over of the 2017 through 21 term.
Right. So Lawrence Glickman, who's a historian at Cornell, took a look at that piece about Republicans' struggle to define a new governing coalition because, they're struggling with policy, and says, what are you talking about? The Trump-era GOP signature accomplishment was a tax cut for the rich. They nearly succeeded in taking health care from millions. Trump deregulated like man. He denied global warming, and he appointed right-wing judges. Where is a push from GOP traditions?
That's a good point, too.
Right? How can they describe infrastructure as a Trumpian priority? He famously did nothing, and equally implausible in light of recent history is their description of, quote, limited government and lower debt, unquote, as conservative traditions. Neither is true.
Right. And was
because, you didn't say this, I'm saying this, but limited government, the government is trying to tell you who can vote and who can't vote, and they're in your face about abortion. And lower debt, the debt exploded under Trump.
Yeah.
So neither of those is true. That's why we call them deficit peacocks.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So right. maybe a now smidgen, what? Lawrence Glickman says, of skepticism is in order about what the GOP has actually stood for and practiced. But again, that's what happens when you don't understand that what they're doing is trying to stay in power. They could care less about any of these so-called priorities. They'll ditch them in a moment if it interferes with being in power.
That is true. All right. Well, this much I agree with. Yeah. How about the rest of it? Maybe.
So the AP says this morning, May 22nd, so it was over the weekend. Okay. Shock of January 6th insurrection devolves into a political fight. Can you imagine that? In one of the most chilling scenes from the January 6th insurrection, a violent mob surged through the halls of the Capitol chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." But when the House moved this week to create an independent commission to investigate the tragedy, the former vice president's brother voted no.
That's right.
Pressed to explain his decision, and remember, we're moving from the first family to the worst family here. Pressed to explain his decision, Representative Greg Pence of Indiana praised his brother as a hero and turned his ire on Democrats calling the commission a cover-up about the failed Biden administration. And Nancy Pelosi, the hanging judge, is hell-bent on pushing her version of partisan justice, complete with a hand-picked jury that'll carry out her predetermined political execution of Donald Trump, which, given that Pelosi agreed to everything Republicans suggested, including a completely 50-50 jury, makes no sense whatsoever. So one of the ways Republicans are lying about the 9/11 style January 6th commission is they're moving their lips.
Yes. Running out of dates as well, by the way.
The thing is that, they are deathly afraid of being linked to being part of the problem.
Right. I realized over the weekend that I had been thinking this for a while, but it finally, clicked for me. Same reason they oppose the teaching of critical race theory and the 1619 Project. You did that too. We all did, but some people are open to discussing it, and you, like with the January 6th Commission, no. If we continue to deny it, then we never have to pay for this.
Right. Anyway.
Yes.
What else is new? Well, we still got this pandemic going on. It's getting better.
Yes.
A lot of the numbers are very, very
That's
encouraging.
True. Right? Some zeros in places. That's nice.
This is MedPage Today. The IDSA, that's the Infectious Disease Society of America. That's the ID docs.
What a society.
Sees widespread confusion, frustration over CDC mask policy. Guidance was a surprise that came too soon and will be hard to implement. So again, they may well be right on the science, but wrong on the sociology. Yes. You can't just say, no, yes. What you have to do is say, no. Well, this is interesting. There's new information that may lead to us changing our opinion on this. We're going to have a new opinion in a week. In the meantime, don't be surprised if things change. And then a week later, well, we're changing.
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm not surprised because I read for a week that you were considering about it, so it's not like a shock to me.
I was on
That's what
vacation
they
that
should have
week.
done, and they didn't. And that's not hard.
Right. Don't know why they didn't go that direction. Things haven't changed much in my area, but that's good. But yeah, other people reporting, everybody's chucking the masks for some reason.
Well, here in Connecticut, people are starting to do that. I mean, I went shopping on Thursday. Everybody was wearing a mask. I went shopping on Sunday, and only people over 50 were wearing masks in the stores. The staff had dropped the mask.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it was really kind of interesting.
All masked here still. And I really haven't I ran into the first person I saw without a mask shopping. And I don't know. I mean, it looked like they had a look in their eye like maybe they were looking for somebody to confront them too. And then nobody did, and then they walked out the door disappointed. But yeah,
the interim announcement on May 13th from CDC Director Rochelle Walensky, who, by the way, I don't think is very good at communication, I have to say.
Apparently not.
Was giving her the benefit of the doubt, but no, she's not doing good.
Okay.
Was abrupt, and as I think you see, was misinterpreted by many as mask mandates are over, and even to some that the COVID-19 outbreak threat is over, neither of which is true. The mask mandate is over for people who have been fully vaccinated, and the COVID-19 outbreak threat isn't over, even though things are getting better because variants make you worry. Although the latest data suggests that the vaccine's pretty good even with the scary variants, but then there's scary variants to come we haven't even tracked yet. So, no, it's not over, and it's never going to be over in the sense that it's completely gone.
Yes.
It's just controllable and to the point where it's at a low enough level so you don't have to be panicked or thinking about it. So Jeff Dushin, a member of the IDSA Board of Directors and Public Health Officer for Seattle and King County in Washington, says they moved too fast. The seemingly sudden shift has led to widespread confusion and frustration and has put public health officials like himself in a rough spot because, quote, it was unexpected, lacked needed context for implementation by state and local public health communities. When asked what the agency should have done differently, Dushin said that the CDC should have communicated sound reasons for why vaccinated people may want to continue to mask until we know that everybody's safe and vaccination rates are high and disease rates are low. Additionally, it should have appreciated the implementation challenges for businesses, schools, and public health officials trying to determine who's vaccinated and who isn't. If you're going to have policies that say only the vaccinated can go unmasked, that's very hard to apply in the real world. Those who must implement the policy are unable to verify vaccination status of unmasked people in public settings, and the potential impact of unvaccinated people no longer masking is unknown.
Yes. That is problematic.
Right? They should emphasize the agency's guidance was based on facts. It's true that vaccinated people have a very high level of protection. The return to normal activities is safe for vaccinated people. There's no debate about the fact. But ending the indoor mask mandate at this time in some areas could lead to increased risk in public spaces and workplaces with preventable COVID-19 spread primarily among the unvaccinated.
Yes.
So that's really the issue. I'm vaccinated. Me, personally. Talking to you, David. I am vaccinated.
I'm listening.
I can go to a store and not wear a mask. The worry is everybody else in the store isn't vaccinated. They can get it from each other if it's not going to be from me. And so my not masking sends a message that do what you want when that's not the message you want to send.
Yes, I think that's probably right. Or rightly put. It is messaging.
Dushin says the agency should have given the public a warning first, like I said, tell us it's coming next week and then have it come. And then after it came, said, see, we told you about this last week. That's why you do it always in threes. To signal that relaxation of mask mandates for vaccinated people was inevitable as more people get the vaccine, and should have provided context to explain the circumstances in which it would make sense to ease up on masking so that various regions could take into account vaccination coverage, rates of new cases, et cetera, et cetera. Here in Connecticut, for example, we're totally dependent upon how much disease there is in Massachusetts and New York, specifically how much disease there is in Boston and New York City, because there's so much travel on I-84 and the Mass Pike between Boston and New York. If New York has high vaccine levels, that's good for Connecticut. And if New York has a lot of virus, that's bad for Connecticut, regardless of our own vaccine levels, because what they see, we're going to see because people travel. Yeah. So the idea that you could just look at one spot and say, oh, this town is doing well, that implies like people don't travel, but they do. So that's part of the context that you have to put all of these decisions in. Now, our governor has said, okay, we're relaxing. We're loosening up. It's going to happen. It is happening. It has happened.
Right. Yes.
And so you can't put the genie back in the bottle now, so people aren't going to wear masks.
Sigh. Well, yeah, that was poorly done. I did see one. The only encouraging sign in all this, I think it's only this one person, but I did actually see somebody arrive at a store without a mask on outside and stop and read the signage on the door and then say, oh, okay, and put a mask on and went in. I was like, that guy should be president. Who is that?
Right. So the agency's statement essentially was directed at people like you and me who are vaccinated. Mm-hmm. But Gene Marazzo, director of the Division of Infectious Disease, University of Alabama, Birmingham, they often have a really, really enormous child flu problem every winter. Yes. Because in Alabama, you wind up in their ICU if they get sick. And by the way, we haven't really seen flu season this year.
No.
Everything that we took with social distancing and masks just like made flu season go away. Really kind of interesting.
It works.
That's because it works, right? Masks work. But she continued, one must also think about people in the community who either can't get vaccinated, like kids who don't have the option yet, who are younger than 12, or might be immunocompromised, and in whom we don't have a great database on vaccine efficacy yet. Mm-hmm. I think asking people to just sort of go with this guidance at the drop of a hat was really a bombshell, and certainly didn't give public health authorities or institutional authorities time to prepare.
No.
You need time to prepare, even if it's just like rewriting your signage.
That is true. I mean, people did struggle with that. I absolutely know that. They didn't know what to put up. And I'm sure there were, and I didn't witness this, but I'm sure there were people arriving at places and they were ignoring the signage for a long time anyway. But now they felt like they had reason to ignore, even if it says that we still need masks. Haven't you heard? 5 minutes ago, a person said you need no masks. So how come my local Target doesn't know that yet?
Well, so we'll find out.
Show them.
Soon enough whether it's okay for unvaccinated people to be around unvaccinated. We know it's already okay to be around vaccinated people. We're about to do a social experiment and find out whether it's okay for vaccinated people to be around unvaccinated people without masks, because that's what's going to happen in all these stores.
That's right, and then we'll have the variant that works that way.
Right, and a companion piece here. It's a minefield. This is in Nature magazine. Right. Very, very good science journal. It's a minefield. COVID vaccine safety poses unique communication challenge. The poll on vaccine hesitancy demonstrates the extraordinary predicament researchers face in transmitting risk information during a pandemic. And they were talking about the J&J pause and what all that meant. Public health specialists must always strike a careful balance when communicating about vaccine safety, but the enormous scale of COVID vaccine rollout means the safety data are evolving fast. So researchers are scrambling to share developments transparently and clearly with the public, and they worry that with the rise of anti-vaccination movements, their message might be used or interpreted to fuel misinformation campaigns. So you have to be transparent, respond quickly, but be very careful. And be very, very quiet, because we're hunting rabbits. Those who spoke to Nature say that because the stakes are so high, explaining vaccine risk has been especially fraught. It's a minefield. Catherine Edwards, a vaccinologist at Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in Nashville, who's been a vaccine safety consultant for 40 years, says, I have not worked this hard in my life. Never worked harder.
Well, if you had, then we wouldn't have so much disease. Damn it. I don't know.
So given the intense news coverage of safety concerns around J&J, for example, it's not surprising people might have questions, said Catherine Scheff, who studies public health communication at Berkeley Media Studies Group in California. Berkeley, by the way, has an E in it, Berkeley. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't know that. She gets mad at people for dropping the last E in her name, but she spells Berkeley wrong all the time.
I know.
She emphasizes that confidence in the other available COVID-19 vaccines remains high. The J&J pause is ultimately evidence of vaccine safety monitoring systems working, but Schaff adds that the new hesitancy described in the KFF poll is evidence that more can be done to make sure people have access to transparent communication about their safety. And one of the challenges people have is putting risk in context without seeming to dismiss people's worries. Right? Somebody says to you, well, I don't know about vaccines. They seem like they're doing it too fast.
Okay.
You can't say, well, you're stupid because these have been in development for 20 years and you just don't know it.
Oops.
That doesn't work in persuasion. You have to say something like,
Noted.
I totally understand why you're worried. Did you know that it's been in development for 20 years? That's a very different way of saying the same thing. And the first way, is not good for persuasion because it sticks a finger in your eye. And the second way is because it acknowledges that you have legitimate concern. Let me address it.
I mean,
same thing when you're talking about voters. We talked about this a long time. When you're trying to persuade voters to vote for your side, if they are persuadable, then you can't yell at them all the time. You can only yell at people who you know won't vote for you anyway, so you might as well yell at them because it's fun.
Right.
That's different.
Oh. Well, at least fun is still acknowledged.
Yeah. Providing
goal.
that context can be tricky because risk perception is highly subjective. Remember, when you're on social media, everybody has a unique experience because they all have unique followers. Alexander Friedman, executive director of the Winton Center for Risk Evidence Communication, must be UK because they spell center wrong. It's CENTRE here. Could be Canada, but probably UK. University of Cambridge, so it's UK.
Oh, okay.
There are two elements of risk that people need to understand to make decisions: the likelihood of something happening and the impact of something happening. For example, the likelihood of severe influenza-like symptoms after a vaccine is 1 in 10. But if they happen, the symptoms could have a larger impact for a single parent without child care than for somebody able to take time to recover.
Okay.
So let's say, I don't know, just pull something random, make it up. Let's say you have a college-age student who has to take finals.
Yes.
They may decide not to take the vaccine immediately right before finals because they don't want to feel sick when they're taking their finals.
Right.
They'll just do it in a couple of weeks. And they will.
Unless you
and
pause
so
their vaccine.
that's fine. Now, stuff like that happens in real life, doesn't it?
I have heard that that's the case. Then you want to not pause their vaccine for a very long time after they take the exam. But if you do that, then...
Well, over in England, you wait 12 weeks.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, that would have been a lot longer. Now my only hesitation about his interest in the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is that all the information about new variants and how effective it is or any other weirdness always comes out first for Pfizer. And I always have to say, I don't know what it means for your vaccine. Sorry.
So interesting observation here. Public health specialists told Nature that the key to increasing public trust continues to be transparency, and a study of how communication about vaccine efficacy affected people's decisions to get a COVID shot. Think about how this applies to politics too. Freeman and our colleagues found that being transparent about the uncertainties made no difference in whether or not a person got the vaccine, but they felt better about it.
All right.
Right? They did find that people felt they were more informed. They felt more confident in their decision making when they were giving more informative communication. Why does that matter? Now, next time. So let's say there's a booster. If you feel better about the fact that you understood what was going on with the vaccine the first time, then you're more likely to listen when people say, here's why you should or shouldn't get a booster later, because you have good feelings about it. Whereas if you feel like the whole thing was my only experience with Obamacare was the first day when I went on the site and the whole thing crashed, and that's the only thing you know about it, then changes to Obamacare are going to be, oh, God, they're doing this again?
Yeah. Well.
Whereas if you had a very good experience and all of a sudden you found you were saving $700 a month, you may have a better feeling about, they're going to do some more stuff with Obamacare. Let's take a look at it. Maybe it'll, help me.
Yeah. Okay. We should. Let's take a look at it. I keep thinking about this more and more about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that he chose to take.
Proof that it ruined everything for Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, right. And it's true. I mean, even after all of the pause and everything, he still said, no, that's the one I want to get. Every opportunity there to get Pfizer like the rest of the family, and he went the different direction. But yeah, I guess one of the things that worries me now with the mask mandate foul up, let's say, and one of the things that worries me about people sort of freelancing it on the masks is, well, when everyone was wearing masks all the time everywhere, I didn't feel I had no worries about the supposedly possibly lower numbers on efficacy of the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine. You're going to be pretty safe being 86, 89% protected, let's say, even though that's probably a wrong way of expressing the numbers, because, of course, we're all, not only are people still wearing masks, but everybody else is getting vaccinated. Many of them will be vaccinated with shots that are even more effective, even if it's just a couple of percentage points. But now the extra percentage points worry me if there's a rush to chuck the masks or pretend you're vaccinated or God knows what. And I wish we had that extra, I don't know, 6, 8, 10% efficacy in the veins that we don't have. And I don't know whether that's a real or legitimate concern or not, but I guess we won't find out until our experiment is over.
Well, all concerns are legitimate, David, so
well,
I'm listening to you. And
there we go.
There's really no difference, but how shall I tell you this?
Yeah. No difference, huh? Okay. I hope not. I mean, that was what we were told originally.
There's no practical difference.
I hope not. Yes, I should think not.
Right. The only thing that matters is whether you get sick. You didn't get sick, the numbers don't matter.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but now, of course, now he's home and saying, well, what does a college student do when home during the summer? And the answer is get some
work. Same as everybody else.
Yeah, right. And that means, of course, putting himself in the retail type situation. And I'm already having to say, by the way, if somebody comes into the store unmasked, you're going to need more training before you can confront somebody and tell them to put the mask on. It's your first week at work. Let somebody else do it.
Yeah. Or just wait for your business to get rid of the mask.
Yeah,
right. That's going to happen quite soon.
I guess that's true, too. That's certainly possible. The
staff
don't worry about it.
Masked. Why are you yelling at somebody when next week you're all going to be doing the same thing?
Yeah. Oh, I guess the other
things to worry about right now, like counting the money right.
Right.
Making sure they get the right return on whatever it is they gave you.
Yes, like the gas line people. Make sure that the billing can get done.
So the final piece is in the New York Times. Dave Leonhardt notes, it's common to hear about two different demographic groups that are hesitant to receive a COVID-19 vaccination, Republican voters and racial minorities. And the two groups seem to have different motivations. For Republicans, general skepticism of government and science. For Black and Hispanics, appears to stem from the country's legacy of providing substandard medical treatment, sometimes doing outright harm. And they have some truth to this, but they also can obscure the fact that many unvaccinated Republicans and minorities have something in common. They're working class. And there's a huge class gap in vaccination behavior. So if you look at vaccine attitudes by class...
the Bernie Sanders theory.
And there's a poll on this from KFF that helps to do that.
Okay.
Non-graduates, only if required or definitely not. Non-graduates, whether you're white or black, you're still 23% not likely to do it. Same white, same black. Hispanic, 17. So of those groups, actually, black non-graduates have the highest number at 23, white at 22, arguably no difference there, Hispanic 17. Democrats 11 and Republican 31. So even within non-graduates, Republicans are still more hesitant. But when you look at non-graduates versus college graduates, for whites, it's 22 versus 13, who will only do it if required or definitely not. For blacks, it's 23 versus 7. Mm-hmm. For Hispanics, it's 17 versus 11. For Democrats, it's 11 versus 2. And for Republicans, it's 31 versus 25. Okay. So it makes the least amount of difference in terms of class with Republicans. Okay. And the most amount of difference, it appears, with blacks.
So I guess what we take away from that is education works unless you're Republican.
Pretty much.
Okay, in which case, nothing matters.
In which case,
nothing matters.
Yeah,
graduate school.
Once, nothing matters.
Well, I could see that being true.
So, fascinating stuff.
Yes.
And that's why, you should try to talk to the persuadables, but don't waste your time in those who have decided they're not going to do it.
All right.
Nothing works with them whatsoever.
Well, they don't talk to me and won't anyway because I'm not a member of their class.
Very classist. Or their tribe, because obviously you once blogged at Daily Kos, and therefore you can't be trusted.
Well, that's probably true. So, anyway, I can't get into their diners. They're too crowded. Luckily, I can't get a seat there anyway, and I wouldn't if they would give me one. So, all right. Well, the time is coming. It'll be very interesting to watch and see how they react to things, and whether, keep an eye on the numbers and see whether they spike anywhere. So far, the spike that I've seen has been sort of a negative thing. Lots of places that have had terrible trouble with the virus now reporting several days in a row of 0 cases in their local jurisdiction, and things just sort of floating along as they always have in, say, Florida, I find. Very interesting. Weird that they can't have any 0 days in Miami-Dade County and in Collier County on the other side. A little weird. Can't really explain it.
A little weird. Anyway, that's my offering for today. Again, way less chaos than what used to be with the former guy here. Yeah. And it's beautiful days and cool nights, good for sleeping. Nice pennant race going on early in May. The Yankees only a half game out of first, and things are looking good. Less vaccine issues, less virus overall, and soon enough we'll be back to whatever is the new normal, which is not going to be like the old normal, because a lot of things are going to wind up changing. Things change, and you can't stop change. So sorry, conservatives, but fact is, electric cars are going to be more popular, and what's going to happen to your local auto supply store that doesn't sell the stuff that electric cars need?
I was thinking about that too. I'll save it for the other side of the break. Maybe I'll pass you a secret note about electric cars. But big news about that electric truck that Biden drove. Very interesting innovation.
You need an electric 18-wheeler so Michael Bell can drive it.
Right, sure. And even Donald Trump will get in and pretend to honk the horn. All right. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So here's the scoop, the thing that I saw and probably didn't put an article aside on it, but I thought was a very interesting side benefit and just the sort of thing that might sell a couple of these Ford F-150 pickup trucks, electric pickup trucks. I mean, that's actually by itself probably one of the things that electric vehicles have been, or the electric vehicle fans have been waiting on as a breakthrough to convince, a larger chunk of the gas-powered and diesel-powered vehicle purchasers to switch over. And I saw, there was some very, let's say, niche and I thought odd criticism of the Ford F-150. I don't think I put this aside, but I think I saw someone on Twitter. I didn't see the original tweet, but then I saw that someone taking that tweet to task, saying this is kind of a stupid criticism, that they were upset about, I guess, the size of the battery in this Ford F-150, like it was a waste to have such a gigantic battery in one vehicle, because a battery like that size could be split up into 3 batteries and could power 3 electric scooters that would get you around town just as efficiently as a Ford F-150. Except, I think the pretty obvious objection to that is, what if you need to carry something or a second person, even, much less cargo? But people who typically people who buy pickup trucks, sometimes they just buy them because they like pickup trucks, I guess. But generally speaking, it's people saying there are things I will need to carry that a pickup truck would specifically make easier for me. And I'm sure there's some portion of the consumer market saying, I would even consider an electric vehicle. It sounds like a good idea. It'd be great to not be dependent on gas all the time. Like, for instance, when a pipeline gets shut down because hackers put ransomware on the billing software for the company that runs the pipeline or whatever. Lots of people were saying, I feel great about having an electric vehicle at this point and I'm not waiting in line for for gas at the station, but I have a pickup truck. I wish I could do that. And obviously, if you can do that, then some people will. Some people will, of course, say, no, I love my pickup truck because I have mine rigged up with the smokestacks and I love rolling coal because I'm an idiot to own the libs or what have you, and they're never going to switch to an electric vehicle. But if you can, some people will. What I thought was a great sales pitch that was, I thought, got much less attention than it should. If it's correct, I understood that Ford was saying that the battery on these things is so big and has such great capacity that in the event of a blackout, you could, in fact, reverse, I guess, the flow of the electricity. Usually, you plug it in to charge it up. The electricity flows outward from whatever the hell, I don't know the physics of it, and into the battery. But you can reverse that and you can power your home as though you had, because I guess you do have, a backup generator. And you could power your home for up to 3 days during a power outage because you bought the rugged, dependable, hard-working Ford F-150. Send me a check, Ford. We'll take that. But that's got great appeal, I would think, particularly for people out in the sticks, and they like to be in the sticks, and they love to say they live out in the sticks, where power might be less reliable, or you might need a pickup truck anyway, or both. And to be able to say, not only am I buying a pickup truck and indulging myself with that, but I'm also buying that generator that we've been talking about without spending any more money on it. Although I imagine the Ford F-150 electric is more expensive, so the money is spent that way. But you know how it goes, and the kitchen table economics are such that whoever's buying the truck can say, okay, sure, it's a little bit of a toy for me too, but we've been talking about getting a generator, and rather than having it sit out there, unused unless there's an emergency, or keeping it filled with fuel, or all the various problems that go along with owning a generator, as well as the benefits. But, if you're driving around in the generator, that's pretty cool. I thought that was a great sales point. I hope it's true. I'm not going to go and get one because honestly, we got no room to park a Ford F-150 in this little townhouse, and we very rarely, if ever, had to carry something in a truck that needed that sort of space because, again, it's coming back to a townhouse, and there aren't that many things that fit into one of these things that we can't either haul back ourselves or have delivered. So anyway, I just thought it was a really cool side benefit, and maybe something that somebody who's looking to convince the rest of the family that it's not just a frivolity to buy a brand new electric pickup truck, but hey, we can run the refrigerator for a couple of days during those blackouts that we occasionally have out here in the sticks. Cool thing. All right, well, let's see. We've got many other things to move on to here, and a couple of things I want to put away that are still flying by on the Twitter machine. But back into Pocket, because I know I had a bunch of things to talk about. And that's where I keep those things. All right, let me see. Flip over to our browser view. I don't know. I'm losing track of how everything works here. Okay, so all right, we were on that Belarus story. All right, plenty of other things to take a look at. One of them, right up at the top here, covered in, I caught a glimpse of it in the Political Wire, and went through to the Politico write-up of it, but I think I like the Political Wire quick hit summary of what's going on here. But so again, original source here is Politico. I guess we'll give them their due. I'll click through and give you the headline and author of the piece here. Top MAGA ally. Remember them, MAGA? Top MAGA ally under fire for squishiness on Trump. Mark Caputo wrote this up for Politico, and Tegan Goddard's Political Wire summarizes it quickly for us. Thus, during Jane Timken's tenure as Ohio Republican Party chair, Donald Trump won the one-time bellwether state by a whopping 8 percentage points. She put 150,000 miles on her car driving to the state's 88 counties as a surrogate for the president, and she raised a total of $5 million for his 2 campaigns, Politico reports. But that sterling record of MAGA support might not be enough to guarantee the former president's support in her bid for the Republican Senate nomination. There are apparently too many other people running for it who are equally or even more crazy, and so they may win the nomination. In fact, I haven't heard her name before, and I think I've heard of at least 2 other Republicans who are vying for the Senate nomination. So why wouldn't she get Trump's support? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, she's just a chick, so who cares? Of course, there's always that working in Trump's head. And like I said, people who are willing to be outright crazy and pro-Trump and just say anything are always going to garner more attention than people who quietly work to support the president, even if quietly working is driving 150,000 miles all over the state and being a surrogate for Trump. And the picture of her accompanying the piece in Politico has her out there in the Women for Trump bus and making speeches and then raising $5 million. That's quiet in Trump's view. $5 million, that's nothing. Who cares? It's pocket change. I'm a billionaire. Anyway, so he'll probably go for one of the more outspoken candidates who say things like, we should kill everyone who didn't vote for Trump, or Trump should be our God King. That's more where his interest runs. So, of course, they're looking now for an excuse. Why should we squeeze her out? And they've found it. That sterling record of MAGA support might not be enough to guarantee the former president's support in her bid for the nomination. Timken's sin, in her capacity as state party chair, she failed to immediately condemn someone else. Home state Republican Congressman Anthony Gonzalez. Why? For voting to impeach Trump in response to the U.S. Capitol riot on January 6th. So, okay, riot. Anthony Gonzalez, a Republican, says we should impeach the president, as, 10 other Republicans did. But Timken didn't disown him and condemn him immediately. She may have condemned him later on. I don't know. And that's enough. When they're looking for a reason to eliminate somebody and back someone more outspoken and mouthier, which would be their preference. I mean, they could just say that. We like somebody with a bigger mouth than Jane has got. She's been a little timid and quiet compared to whatever, the various other candidates who are willing to say crazy stuff about Trump. So there you go. Put your time in, break your car, raise $5 million, get thrown under the bus. That's the Trump way, and you should know it, and couldn't happen to better people, I suppose. It's just, I wish it would happen to more of them, if not better ones. Okay, let's see. Moving on from that. Speaking of the January 6th situation, I don't think I actually put this in Pocket, but we spent a lot of time on it over the weekend on Twitter, so I'll go back to my Twitter feed and roll back and find it, just so I get the names right. We were all not particularly astonished to find out that this was true, but here it is. Representative Mike Gallagher. Mike Gallagher is from where? Let's see, I'll open up the thread. I forget. But anyway, we could look him up. Why don't we do that so we can be sure? But you probably know what I'm talking about by now if you saw it over the weekend. Mike Gallagher is a Republican House member from the 8th District of, where? They put that up on 8th District of Wisconsin. Is that right? Okay, yes. 8th District of Wisconsin. Who used to represent the 8th District of Wisconsin? That rings a bell for me for some reason. Should take a look in. Does Wikipedia tell us? Or maybe I could look at his Wikipedia entry and see who his predecessor was. Let's see. Reed Ribble. Oh, that doesn't make much sense either. but maybe before him. I don't know why the 8th district. Nah, I don't know. I guess it's just random. Anyway, the story is that his video, which I guess was circulating on and about January 6th at the time, I don't know whether it got a whole lot of attention, but it's sort of resurfaced now because of, the history that has ensued. But here is the Mike Gallagher video in which he is locked in his office on January 6th. And again, a Republican. And saying that this is crazy, this is banana republic crap, as he says, and begging Trump to call off the assault. You know, he knows offhand exactly what's going on and how it's, why things are happening the way they're happening and who's responsible for it. Let me see if I can, if I pocket it, then I should be able to roll it on the show computer and let you hear a little bit of it. It's a little longer than the clips I usually like to play, but I don't think we're going to get in too much trouble for playing through the minute and 44 seconds of audio from this. We could probably skip even the first couple seconds as I adjust the volume in case we miss any. Let's see. Let's roll it.
Right now,
Here we go.
I
Nice and
am
clear.
sheltered in place
Hi, Mike.
in my office because we have protesters who have stormed the Capitol,
Yes.
clashing with Capitol Police, forcing their way into Statuary Hall. The Vice President of the United States was just rushed off the floor of the House by Secret Service. This is Banana Republic crap that we're watching happen right now.
It
And the
is.
objectors over the last 2 days have told me there is no problem with just having a debate. We know we're not going to succeed, so we're just going to object. We're going to have a debate. We'll voice people's concerns, and then we won't actually overturn our entire system of representative government, so nothing bad will happen. There will be no cost to this effort.
Well, I'll pause it there. You know what you see what he's talking about. At first, it wasn't entirely clear, but he's differentiating between the protesters and the objectors. And the objectors, of course, is his colleagues in the House and some others in the Senate who were saying we're going to object to counting electoral votes from certain states. But again, the promises made to him, the representations made to him, their colleague, was that, look, we know this doesn't go anywhere. We're just going to have a symbolic vote like they have in years past when Democrats objected to counting electoral votes from various states and for various reasons in 2004 and 2000 and again in 2016. We're going to have our protest vote and then move on. That apparently was something that the Republicans who were planning to object to the votes were representing to people who had qualms with that strategy, like Mike Gallagher. But it's important to hear his tone of voice in all this. He's actually kind of outraged, and there's more. Let's hear the rest.
This is the cost of this effort. This is the cost of countenancing an effort by Congress to overturn the election and telling thousands of people that there is a legitimate shot of overturning the election today.
I'll pause it again now just to note that this is the difficulty with broadcasting or taping yourself with a built-in microphone, perhaps, on his laptop, or else a microphone on a stand on his desk. He is, for emphasis, doing a little karate chop of the desk there to make his point, and you can hear the thuds on the microphone. Sorry, that's not me, but Mike Gallagher. But yeah, on a more serious note, you kind of almost get it, sir. That's great, right? Continuing on.
Even though you know that is not true, we have got to stop this. Mr. President, you have got to stop this. You are the only person who can call this off.
Yeah.
Call it off. The election is over. Call it off. This is bigger than you. It's bigger than any member of Congress. It is about the United States of America, which is more important than any politician. Call it off. It's over.
So how about that? I mean, that's pretty strident, right? So, of course, you know where this is going by now, probably. Mike Gallagher, your vote then, let's say, on impeaching the president because he didn't call it off and wouldn't call it off and told your Republican leader in the House that there was nothing he should call off anyway because, what can I tell you, they feel more strongly about the election than you do. Besides, they were patriots. They're hugging and kissing the police. Right? Mike Gallagher, no on impeachment. No. Just no. Don't call it off. What'll happen if I don't call it off? Nothing. Nothing in particular. Mike Gallagher also, though, of course, back in the news, and this video circulates because he also voted against establishing the January 6th commission, even though there were some Republicans willing to do it because they knew that a real compromise, even when we probably shouldn't have agreed to, was formulated, and some 30 or so other Republicans went along with this, 3 times the number that went along with the question on impeachment. But Mike Gallagher, a no again. So kind of full of it. There was more Banana Republic crap in the situation than he realized at the time. Imagine making this video and a couple days later being asked to back it up and saying, it's probably better if we just do nothing. Yeah, that is pretty amazing. So, okay, I thought I would share that with you, and I think it was important to sort of hear it in his own tone of voice, too. It really is kind of astonishing. All right, moving on then, and rounding up a couple other stories. Let me thumb through what's in pocket and share a couple of those things. Let's see. Oh, yes, here's a quick hit that I haven't seen written up yet, but I'll check in on Roger Solenberger's Twitter feed to see whether he has written it up. I imagine this is coming soon, but he was tweeting over the weekend with a photo of the judge's order about which he is talking in this tweet. A U.S. District Court judge has ordered Trump flack Jason Miller, that gigantic scumbag that we all know and hate, and is still working for Trump. And although saying he was working for free, you remember the guy. He's pulling every trick in the book. Well, anyway, this judge has ordered Jason Miller to pay Gizmodo, remember them? Gizmodo nearly $42,000 to cover legal expenses from his failed $100 million defamation suit. What was he suing about? Well, it's wrapped up here in the rest of this comment. The judge found Gizmodo accurately reported, and so therefore would not be liable for defamation, accurately reported a court filing alleging that Miller slipped an abortion pill into a woman's smoothie, that woman being a stripper that he impregnated during the Trump campaign. And while he had, I guess at the same time, also impregnated a fellow campaign staffer and left her high and dry with all the expense of taking care of their child, over which he is being sued for child support as we speak. But there you go. Just another one of those examples where one of the Trumpers just brazenly, does this thing which is completely at odds, supposedly, with Republican values, gets caught and denies it so vehemently, and then actually goes ahead and files and says, I deny it, and to prove I'm right in denying it, because I could just deny it, but to prove I'm right, I'm going to file a $100 million defamation suit against the people who said this about me, because it's not true, and they're liars. And even if you don't believe I should get $100 million for it, I'll get something because I'm totally right here, except for the fact that the judge says, I've actually looked at all the evidence and you're totally wrong. And not only will you not be getting your $100 million, you have to pay the other side's legal fees because you're such a big liar here. So there you have it. Good news. from the United States District Court in the Southern District of Florida, of all places. As I understand it, the judge here is a George W. Bush appointee as well. So just thought I'd throw that in there. I didn't double check that, but I did see somebody mention that. And as you know, that could be completely wrong because Greg told us it could be completely wrong. But I don't care because it's Jason Miller. And there you have it. So that's, I think, good news. I should see, again, does that mean that... No, I went the wrong way here. Does that mean that Sullenberger will usually have written this up at some point and published it at the Daily Beast? And I'm just curious. I will. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think we need anything more than that. That seemed to be the meat of the story as far as I'm concerned. So we'll give you that tweet by way of proof on that. And let me move on to a couple other things here. Let's see. This was one I wasn't expecting. Another item from the Daily Beast. Jared Kushner back in the news. And I, of course, was mentioning him earlier this morning as I saw, let's see. Well, let me look up. Got to look back in the Twitter feed for this one. But earlier this morning, I was reminded, unfortunately, of Jared Kushner's existence for a slightly different reason. Yes, right. It was the tweet of Kevin Barron, executive editor of Defense One, noting that today, I guess, is the anniversary. Right, it's May 24th. Yes, and I forgot to mention, as we did in the morning post here today, Victoria Day in Canada. Congratulations to all the Canadians doing Victorian things today, I guess. I know nothing about it, but it sounds like fun. And weird things happen on Victoria Day, like I understand the government buildings in Canada, for today, fly, along with the Canadian flag, the British flag, the Union... Well, I was going to say the Union Jack, but I think I can still say that now, Union Jack, even though ordinarily Jack refers to a naval emblem rather than just a flag flying on land. But I think I saw, and looking it up, believe it or not, in Wikipedia, they say, no, now you can call it the Union Jack for some reason. I don't know. I'm not up on the flag terminology, the latest on it, the new decisions that have been made. Anyway, doesn't matter. 1 year ago today, I don't know if it was Victoria Day then. I think not, because you know how dates change. But anyway, 1 year ago today, the New York Times running its banner headline, May 24th, 2020, on what? U.S. deaths from coronavirus nearing 100,000. And the big banner headline, and the whole front page basically turned over to printing the names of, I don't know how many of them, it's continued, I guess, but as many as they could. The entirety of the front page, names of people who had died in the COVID pandemic to that point. And mind you, it was only 100,000, because 500,000 more people have died since then. So the headline is U.S. deaths near 100,000, an incalculable loss. And then all these names. And it's meant to be very dramatic, and it was. But I will just note for the record, as I did this morning on Twitter, this on May 24th, 2020, 100,000 dead, 500,000 more people now already dead. But this was also, the timing of this thing, was almost a full month after Jared Kushner, that's where we started with all this. Jared Kushner had, declared it. I keep hammering on this. Now, what else seems to remember this? Declaring the Trump administration response to the coronavirus pandemic a great success story. Now, mind you, at that time, about 60,000 people had already died in his great success story. And here I am a month later noting for you that the New York Times is saying there are 100,000 dead. That the month from late April to late May, 40,000 additional people died. And it wasn't even the deadliest month, I don't think even by a long shot, the deadliest month of the pandemic. it's just amazing that that happened, and a great success story. And I don't know, there's never been any accounting for how outrageous it was to say something like that. It was also, by the way, the timing is everything to me on this. Also, a full month before Donald Trump, ignoring everything, went ahead and held the rally in Tulsa that killed Herman Cain. And on top of that, then another 500,000 people die. As I keep saying, history will demand to know why we didn't hang Trump.
Hi everyone, it's me, Gil. Minimal contributor to content, but regular contributor to funding for Kagro in the morning. Let's change things up from David's so very tired plea for your contributions with a plea of my own. If you want to add your voice to the show, do it. Record your own segment using your favorite recording device and send it to David. Read an article and give your opinion. Write your own essay and read that. The sky's the limit. Well, not really. Try to keep it relatively short so David doesn't have to stress about cutting it and hurting your feelings. Join the hallowed ranks of Greg Dworkin and Joan McCarter and be part of this somewhat witty deep dive into political topics with unnecessary censoring. Lend your voice to the show by sending it to kagrox@gmail.com. KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Roots Radio. Why did I bring up Jared Kushner in the first place? It was to tell you this, predictable enough story, illustrated with a really annoying Reuters photo of him looking particularly smug, like no one can touch me, and really no one should, quite honestly, in that way anyway. Jared Kushner's May 2021, that's this month, stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Abu Dhabi, which, ordinarily who cares, right? Costs the U.S. thousands in taxpayer dollars, or costs U.S. taxpayers thousands, right? A modern monetary theory people saying, well, but okay. The point is, as reported by Justin Rohrlich, nearly 6 months after Trump grudgingly ceded power to now President Joe Biden, Ivanka Trump's husband, and that's all he is still running up a travel tab on the public dime. According to a federal acquisitions document reviewed by the Daily Beast, the State Department laid out at least $12,950 for Jared Kushner's Secret Service detail. Remember, he's still got one because he's married to Ivanka, and Ivanka is a member of Trump's immediate family, and Trump, in one of his last acts as president, extended Secret Service protection to all of them for 6 months after he left office, which I guess it is his prerogative to do. His protection continues, but I guess it comes to an end eventually for family members, although he may actually ask for some sort of an extension, and I wonder whether it would even be granted. It is possible that it might actually be granted. But there you have it. I don't know why he's in Abu Dhabi. It doesn't matter. He goes, the Secret Service goes. $12,950 for them to accompany him during a stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Abu Dhabi. The filing, right, a so-called sole source justification for a contract to be awarded without seeking competitive bids. He says he's going to stay in the Ritz-Carlton. There aren't other Ritz-Carltons that are the same one that he's staying in that they can bid for competitively, right? They're just going to have to stay there. That's the whole point. Well, it called for 50 room nights at $259 each, which, by the standards of probably the Ritz-Carlton Abu Dhabi, I would have thought it actually probably would have been more. But the point is, there should be no Secret Service detail there at all, and we certainly shouldn't be paying for it. And if he wants to go to Abu Dhabi, that's his business. Let him do it. Leave us alone. But no, he gets it paid for. So there we go. 50 room nights. I don't know how, maybe the number of days he stayed is listed somewhere else. But we are. May 5th to May 14th. So let's see. Nights would be the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11, 12, 13, and I guess leaving on the 14th. So what is that? 9 days. So I guess they needed something like 5 rooms. Maybe the Secret Service arrived earlier or ahead of him and stayed after he left. I don't know. But that many people are accompanying him to Abu Dhabi still. So there you go. So that $12,950 also included internet facilities and other services in support of the United States Secret Service protection for, again, I know he's related, he's family, but remember that he's former senior advisor to the President of the United States, right? But that's not why he's getting the protection. It's interesting that is in the report, because no, senior advisors to the president don't get Secret Service protection 6 months after the president is out of office if they decide to go to Abu Dhabi. It's the family angle here. And they might as well just say so. The selection was based on the former senior advisor to the President of the United States, Jared Kushner's decision and the high security level the hotel provides. It says, about a month before Trump left office, his son-in-law and senior advisor, Kushner, took off on one last overseas trip. The official excursion cost taxpayers at least $24,335 in hotel costs alone, not including flights and transportation, local transportation, that is, meals, salary, overtime for the Secret Service detail. It is virtually unheard of for former administration officials to keep their Secret Service protection once they leave office. However, prior to vacating the White House, eventually, Trump granted an additional 6 months of security for at least 3 cabinet appointees on top of all of this, and 13 members of his family, including Kushner. Kushner's financial ties to the UAE have raised concerns among ethics watchdogs, such as the Nonpartisan Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Totally different issue, but there you have it. Anyway, just thought I would point that out. He's still costing people money and still, I'm sure, squeezed this trip into May so that it would be covered and he would have free security, no cost to him out of pocket. So, sounds fun. All right, moving on to other issues that or other angles of issues we've already been discussing since running the Mike Gallagher video and seeing how outraged he was at the whole big lie and that the costs of the big lie, et cetera, et cetera. And speaking of Liz Cheney's calling out of the big lie but not calling out any of the ancillary benefits to the Republican Party of the big lie, like the voter suppression legislation being passed in many states. We'll add this angle. From Politico's coverage, they tried to overturn the 2020 election. That's true, they did. Now they, the people in this article, want to run the next one. We've discussed the phenomenon, but I think this is probably a good roundup. Trump supporters who back his claim that the 2020 vote was rigged are running to become the top election officials in key states. Not enough that they're running these fake audits and that they're now looking to stand up some more of these fake audits in more states than just Arizona, but they'll be aided immeasurably by Republicans if they're sitting in these particular seats of power. They'll allow these audits to go forward and continue to use taxpayer money to pay for them as well. Zach Montellaro writing this piece for Politico. Republicans who sought to undercut or overturn President Joe Biden's election win are launching campaigns to become their state's top elections officials next year, alarming local office holders and opponents who are warning about pro-Trump ends justify the means candidates taking big roles in running the vote. Well, you knew they were always aiming at this. It is interesting to watch people get pushback when they announce that they now understand that eventually it will just get to the point where Republicans simply refuse to certify a genuine Democratic win. We saw several of them do that in the House and even a couple of them in the Senate, but Yeah, eventually you'll get to the point where if Republicans were to win a majority in both houses, you would find that they will just simply reject the Electoral College if it declares Joe Biden or any other Democrat to be the winner of the presidency or any other race. I imagine eventually they'll just, and why bother winning the majority either? I mean, why not simply just say, or I guess maintaining the majority? Suppose they win the majority and they do this and people are outraged, and in 2026 there's a huge wave replacing Republicans in as part of the majority in the House and Senate, but it comes time to count or to collect everybody's election certificates, and 75 newly elected Democrats show up, and House Republicans simply say, we think your certificates are invalid. We keep our majority. Screw the hell, screw you all. Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? At this point, right? There's no reason why they wouldn't try it. Would it work? I don't know. I think it could, because, of course, I've said, well, it is actually something that Democrats could do. And, of course, I suppose that people will say, well, that's hypocritical for you to say that Democrats could do it, but Republicans could not. Yeah, on a slightly different basis, but the power exists to simply reject people's election certificates. It's not wise to do it all the time, and you don't always have a good basis for doing it, and you could just do it with a bad basis. And I guess that's the worry, is that that's what they're planning here, in a slightly different context. Where were we? Ends justify the means, right. Pro-Trump ends justify the means candidates taking big roles in running the vote. The candidates include Representative Jody Hice of Georgia, leader of the congressional Republicans who voted against certifying the 2020 Electoral College results, Arizona State Representative Mark Fincham, one of the top proponents of the conspiracy-tinged vote audit, or fraudit, as they say, in Arizona's largest county, Nevada's Jim Marchant, who sued to have his 5-point congressional loss last year overturned, and Michigan's Christina Karamo, I don't know how she pronounces that, Karamo, who made dozens of appearances in conservative media to claim fraud in the election. Now, they are running for Secretary of State in key battlegrounds that could decide control of Congress in 2022, and who wins the White House in 2024. Their candidacies come with former President Donald Trump still fixated on spreading falsehoods about the 2020 election, insisting he won, and lying about widespread and systemic fraud. Each of their states has swung between the two parties over the last decade, though it is too early to tell how competitive their elections will be. The campaigns set up the possibility that politicians who've taken steps to undermine faith in the American democratic system could soon become the ones running it. Someone who is running for an election administration position, whose focus is not the rule of law, but instead that the ends justify the means, that's very dangerous in a democracy, said the other Bill Gates, the Republican vice chair of the Board of Supervisors in Maricopa County, Arizona. This is someone who's trying to tear at the foundations of democracy. The Secretary of State campaigns will also be tests of how deeply rooted Trump's lies about the election are in the Republican base. 64% of Republican-leaning voters in a recent CNN poll said they did not believe Biden won enough votes legitimately to win the presidency. Hice and Marchant are running to replace sitting Republican secretaries of state, while Fincham and Karamo, or whatever her name is, are seeking the GOP nomination in states with Democratic incumbents. None of the four campaigns responded to interview requests. Trey Grayson, the former Republican Secretary of State in Kentucky, said there are, quote, two ways to look at the risk posed by the campaigns. There's a symbolic risk, and then there's functional risk. Grayson noted that, depending on the state, secretaries of state often play ministerial roles in election certification and vote counting, with more direct oversight of the process falling to local county and city election clerks. That means that functional risk of electing pro-Trump election truthers as secretaries of state could be lower, than many perceive. We'll see. But the symbolic risk could be much higher. Any Secretary of State who was a chief elections official is going to have a megaphone and a media platform during the election, Grayson said. A lot of the power is the perception of power, or that megaphone. As candidates and officials, the quartet of Republicans have used their megaphones to promote claims of widespread fraud in the 2020 election. Fincham, the Arizona state representative, has been a major proponent of the audit of the results in Maricopa County, which isn't what's going on there, of course. The Republican-run state Senate is running the process in the state's largest county, which Biden narrowly won. The audit has been a lightning rod, attracting heavy criticism from GOP officials in Maricopa County, who say the so-called auditors are doing shoddy, conspiracy-fueled work. They are. But nevertheless, building up hope among Trump supporters who believe that he won the election. Fincham appeared on the Twitch stream of, and this should be like disqualifying ordinarily, the Twitch stream of Red Pill 78. Oh my God. Which the New York Times reported promotes the QAnon conspiracy theory earlier this month, and said he has talked to Trump about the 2020 election. This is Fincham. The mainstream media, quote, keeps using this term baseless, Fincham said on the Red Pill show. I hate to break the news to you, but just in case you news people haven't been paying attention, there's a lot of evidence. It's already out there. We've got the proof. We've got the receipts, he continued, calling the press a propaganda machine. Of course, he hasn't got proof or receipts. That's the problem. His appearance on the show was first reported by the Arizona Mirror, which also previously reported that Fincham had marched to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. What a surprise. Fincham has also frequently promoted claims of fraud on social media. They, quote, won by cheating. Now they want to make cheating legal. WTH, what the hell? This Stalinization of America has to come to an end, he wrote on Parler. How ironic it all is. The social media site popular on the right. Former Vice President Mike Pence, quote, now cares about election integrity? This reveals that he must acknowledge that there was fraud, he wrote on Gab, another site that caters to the far right. Neither statement making any sense in itself, but whatever. Last week, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, which includes Gates and is controlled 4-1 by Republicans, lashed out at the Arizona State Senate over the audit, calling it a sham that has, quote, rented out the once good name of the Arizona State Senate to grifters and con artists. You remember that from the letter. The supervisors were flanked at a press conference by various county officials, including Sheriff Paul Penzone, a Democrat, and Recorder Stephen Richer, a Republican, who was recently elected the county's chief elections officer. You'll recall that Sheriff Paul Penzone, Penzone, Democrat, new thing for Maricopa County. That used to be Joe Arpaio's bailiwick, and literally bailiwick. Unprompted, Richer, the Republican chief elections officer, closed the press conference by tearing into Fincham, mocking the false conspiracy theories that the voting machinery from the company Dominion Voting Systems was used to change election results. Mark Fincham is running for Secretary of State. Process that, he said. That's his version of let that sink in, I guess. If the election was completely fraudulent, as he says, why would you run for Secretary of State? What, do you think Dominion is going to rig it in your favor this time? Why are you running if you do not believe in these elections? He closed. I would suggest that his actions speak a lot louder than his words. Not sure how much sense that actually makes, but okay. In a subsequent interview with Politico, Richer analogized it to revealed preference as an economics theory. All these people, their true preferences and their true beliefs regarding the election system are more readily determined by their actions, which is to continue to run, he said, suggesting that if people really thought it was rigged, they wouldn't bother to run. Okay. When asked whether he was considering a run for Secretary of State in 2022, Richer quickly and flatly gave a one-word answer, no. Which, of course, means it will be an open seat and give Fincham all that much better shot at it, unfortunately. The most prominent candidate in the group is likely Heiss, who is challenging Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a Republican whom Trump has repeatedly attacked for defending the 2020 elections as free and fair. In a recent letter circulated to conservatives in Georgia and obtained by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Heiss wrote that the election was full of, quote, systemic voting irregularities and fraud, and that he was running, quote, to stop Democrats before they rig and ruin our democracy forever. He is running his campaign with Trump's endorsement, of course. Jody will stop the fraud and get honesty into our elections, Trump proclaimed the day Heiss launched his campaign. Raffensperger is facing significant anger within his own party, but he recently reaffirmed that he would run again. The danger is you're lying to either yourself or to millions of people when you try to run for these large statewide offices. Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan, a Republican, said of the false electoral fraud claims. Duncan, a vocal critic of Trump and other Republicans who pushed the election fraud myth, recently announced he would not seek re-election and instead focus on his GOP 2.0 initiative. He said a fixation on it will only hurt Republicans in the long term. There's a vacuum of leadership, and folks wanting to put themselves into even higher leadership positions, continuing to carry on with the lies and misinformation, continues to create an even bigger vacuum around our party, he said. Duncan, who was in Washington, D.C. last week to take meetings about GOP 2.0, he declined to say with whom, said he believed the party would come around. They're just going to get tired of losing. They're going to get tired of running people out there that are just unelectable. Well, I hope he's right, and I hope that they are, in fact, unelectable. Whether they get tired of it, I guess I kind of hope that they don't, in a way, especially if it just leads to their losing all the time. But we have yet to see. All right, let's see. What other things can we handle in the few minutes remaining? I read a little over the weekend about some of what was going on in Arizona, and I think we got a pretty good view of what's happening there, but I don't know if we made mention of this or not. I mean, I've made mention in passing of this, but I don't know if I put it on the record with this article. Let me read you this from the Washington Post, just so you know what's going on. The import of the Maricopa County stuff. And I really do, maybe I will read tomorrow or perhaps later in the week more about exactly what's going on in Maricopa County, so you get some sense of just how out of control things really are. But this is the upshot of it. In echo of Arizona, Georgia state judge orders Fulton County to allow local voters to inspect mailed ballots cast last fall. So now we've devolved from let's have an audit to let's have a fake audit conducted for a $150,000 bid by cyber ninjas. That was one of the things I learned in the article. Their bid on the cost of this fake audit, $150,000. Now, mind you, this thing has been going on for a month and still has another month or two before they even finish it. There's no way it cost $150,000, and it didn't. They're already, one of the big problems that's illustrated in this other article, if we never get to it, I'll give you the highlight of it, is that outside private money is coming in, allegedly paying for this. There's no accounting for what's going on here. The state Senate is still only going to pay $150,000. By the way, the next most competitive bid, I guess, by people who have actually conducted audits, $8 million. No wonder but it's funny, fiscally conservative Republican idiots are running around saying we were fiscally conservative. We went with the $150,000 bid, not the $8 million bid. And as a result, you got people showed up with crayons and ultraviolet flashlights and say they're conducting an audit. And they spoiled all the ballots and ruined all the voting machines. And it's devolved even further. In Georgia, they're just saying, let local voters inspect it? Like not even forget the quote-unquote forensic audit. Just everybody can come in. What does this even mean? let's learn, I guess, as much as we can in the few minutes we've got left. Amy Gardner wrote this for the Post at the end of last week. A Georgia state judge on Friday ordered Fulton County to allow a group of local voters to inspect all 147,000 mail-in ballots cast in the 2020 election in response to a lawsuit alleging that officials accepted thousands of counterfeit ballots. Same allegation as in Arizona. The decision marks the latest instance of a local government being forced, maybe, to undergo a third-party inspection of its election practices amid baseless accusations promoted by President Donald Trump that fraud flipped the 2020 contest for President Biden. The inspection in Fulton County, home to Atlanta. And, of course, the people who live in Atlanta. And what do they look like? Well, the inspection is likely to proceed differently than an audit underway in Maricopa County, Arizona, where Republican state senators ordered their officials to hand over equipment and ballots to a private company called Cyber Ninjas for examination. That process has come under widespread criticism for lacking security measures and failing to follow the rigorous practices of government recounts. On Thursday, Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs urged local officials to toss their machines after the audit is complete because their security is now in doubt. What if Cyber Ninjas, the one thing that they're, like, there's nothing cyber about auditing paper ballots, for one thing. But you might wonder, Cyber Ninjas, what are they doing with our electronic voting machines that they're taking apart and poking around in? And are they onboarding any sort of malicious code? We don't know. Can't see. Can't find out. In Georgia, though, Superior Court Judge Brian Amaro, wasn't that the name of the fake NAFTA currency? So we got a matrix glitch here, Oliver. Anyway, he ruled on Friday that the 9 plaintiffs and their experts, whoever they are, could examine copies of the ballots, interesting, but never touch the originals. That seems at least somewhat wise, except you should never let this to go forward. But okay. The originals will remain in the possession of Fulton County elections officials. Further details of how the inspection will proceed are expected next week, said one of the plaintiffs, Garland Favorito, like favorite, Favorito. Interesting. And of course, they'll eventually complain, well, these copies, I can't tell if there's bamboo in them or cheese dust because, they're in the originals. We demand the originals. We'll see whether that flies. The order for the new ballot inspection comes after Georgia officials did 3 separate audits. Remember this? 3 separate already audits of the vote last year, including a hand recount, which produced no evidence of widespread fraud. Fulton County Board of Commissioners Chair Rob Pitts said it was, quote, outrageous that the county, quote, continues to be a target of those who cannot accept the result from last year's election. The fact remains that Fulton County safely and securely carried out an election in the midst of a public health pandemic, Pitts said in a statement. It's a shame to see that the big lie lives on and could cost the hardworking taxpayers of this county. A spokesman for Pitts said he plans to meet with the Fulton County attorney to review all legal options to block this waste of taxpayer resources. Fulton County is one of numerous counties where local residents have recently pushed to revisit the 2020 election results, echoing Trump's false claims of fraud. In this case, filed in December, the plaintiffs are seeking a declaratory judgment that counterfeit balloting occurred in the county. The judge's ruling on Friday was part of the suit's discovery process and allows the plaintiffs to examine the ballots for evidence of their claim. Anna Dennis, Executive Director of Common Cause Georgia, said the lawsuit is another attempt to sow doubt about the 2020 election results and raise lots of money in the process. She suggested that the examination would be used to try to justify more voting restrictions in the state after the GOP majority legislature passed the sweeping voting law earlier this spring. It's a cynical strategy, she said in a statement, create artificial doubt about our election processes and then use that doubt to make voting harder for the voters that you don't think will vote for you. But Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said the decision would bring a welcome layer of transparency to an election fraught with accusations. What happened to the great hero Brad Raffensperger, everybody? Fulton County has a long-standing history of election mismanagement, he says, that has understandably weakened voters' faith in this system. Raffensperger said in a statement, allowing this audit provides another layer of transparency and citizen engagement. This is outrageous. Quite amazing that all of a sudden the heroes of the Republic, Brad Raffensperger, Liz Cheney, all for suppressing Democratic votes in the end after all. What a strange situation. I don't know what happened in the rest of this article. You can read it afterwards, but Don Blankenship's name somehow enters into this article, and he's not even from Georgia. So surprise, surprise. Read it perhaps on your own afterwards today. Time now, though, for Justice Putnam to take over the mic with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next. What's up? Well, a national leading rabbi has a message for Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments about the Holocaust. I didn't even get to that. I don't even know whether I should spend time on that. But I know that Justice should. Somebody should. I'll let him take the lead on this one. We'll probably grouse about it tomorrow. Much more to stay tuned.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Here's a new one from around the country. A man with a history of arson-related arrests pleaded not guilty to setting fire to the historic San Gabriel Roman Catholic Mission in Southern California. That's a bit of a local interest story. Stay tuned for news about that and much more after this. We'll be back tomorrow.